Ancient thinkers, cultures, or spiritual traditions describe experiences that sound a lot like lucid dreaming, even if they didn't use that exact term. In ancient Greece, the most common way people engaged with dreams was through something called ritual incubation. Picture this: you've tried everything, but your leg still hurts. It's ancient Greece, and the state of the art cure is a dream. So it's time to go on a journey. You pack a small offering, a few coins, a honey cake, maybe a little clay model of the aching body part, and set out for an Asclepeion, basically an ancient Greek healing temple dedicated to god of medicine Asclepius, with the famous one being at Epidaurus or the sanctuaries on Kos or Pergamon. Once you arrive at the gates, you wash, pray, and leave your token. Then a priest guides you into the dim sleeping hall called the Abaton. You stretch out on plain mats and pillows, shoulder to shoulder with other patients, under the watch of the gods' symbols, including the temple's harmless sacred snakes. There you lie down to sleep for a healing dream, just sleeping in the god's house. By dawn, if Asclepius appeared, he may mend you in your dream or give you steps to take after waking, in which case you report it to temple staff after you wake up and they give you a prescription based on your dream and you follow through. The most remarkable recoveries, lameness eased, eyesight restored, fertility returned, were etched into stone, the Iamda, as proof for future travelers to read and know. Sleep here, dream well, and you might walk out changed. Perhaps without realizing it, by setting a clear intention and seeking a vivid dream vision, these people were actually trying to bring about a lucid dream or a semi-lucid trance state to obtain divine guidance from dreams. But amid this tradition of seeking divine messages in sleep, in his short treatise called On Dreams, written over 2300 years ago, Aristotle treated dreams as psychological and physiological events. He believed dreams were nothing but internal echoes, leftover impressions from waking life. He said dreams are basically leftover sense impressions from the day. Think of them like after images or faint echoes of what you saw, heard, and felt. When you fall asleep and your outward senses quiet down, those leftovers float back up and your mind stitches them into a dream. For Aristotle, the state of the body decided whether dreams were clear or chaotic. He used a simple image to illustrate his point, which goes like this. The mind is like water. If the water is still, it reflects clean images. If it's churned up, the reflections wobble and warp. Just as in a liquid, when it's disturbed, no clear reflection appears, but when the motion stops, the images are clear, so too with dreams. So, after eating, he says food generates heat and movement inside. The water is stirred, so dreams right after a big meal are messy, jumpy, or distorted. Fever or strong emotions also add heat and motion, making dreams wild or confusing. On the other hand, when the body is calm and the senses are settled, those lingering impressions arise gently and the dream is sharper and more lifelike. But here's where it gets interesting. He also acknowledged that we could be aware of dreaming while still inside the dream. Aristotle writes, accordingly, just as if a finger be inserted beneath the eyeball without being observed, one object will appear as two. But if the finger is observed, the illusion vanishes. So too in sleep. If the sleeper perceives that he is asleep, then the image of Coriscos presents itself, but the real Coriscos is not there. Often, Even while dreaming, there is something in the mind that declares this is a dream. But if the person is unaware of being asleep, there is nothing to contradict the dream. So in simple terms, he is saying that if the area beneath your eye is pressed and you don't realize it, the object you're looking at can appear as two. But the moment you become aware that your eye is being pressed, the illusion fades. You understand that there aren't two objects, but one. Something similar can happen in dreams. Sometimes a small rational part of the mind says, this is not real. It is just a dream. And in that instant, you recognize that you are dreaming. The scenery around you isn't real. It's just your mind creating it. But if you don't realize that you're dreaming, nothing corrects the illusion. So you go along believing everything you see, and the dream feels completely real, even though it's only your mind spinning a story. Aristotle writings are one of the earliest surviving accounts suggesting dream awareness, what we now call lucid dreaming. And what's interesting is that Aristotle doesn't frame it as a spiritual or mystical event. He treats it as a subtle function of consciousness, almost like a reflex. If you know you're dreaming, you can observe the dream without being fooled by it. But if you're not aware, your mind accepts the dream entirely as reality.